This is Dean Shaw, and as you can see here on Dean's LinkedIn profile, he's the Virtual Events Program Manager at SAS, a global software company. I talked to Dean just after the lockdown started in April in 2020, and he told me they'd already done 52 webinars in 3 weeks. Holy smokes, right? By the end of April, Dean had done 120 webinars, which is more than SAS did in all of 2019. Wow! Last week, I checked in with Dean, and the final webinar tally for 2020 was 600 webinars. 600! That's an average of 2.29 webinars every single workday. On one day, Dean did 7 webinars. That is a ton of webinars, and that's just one company. I get it. In a world where everything has moved online, where every in-person event and meeting has been canceled or postponed, we're going to be doing more and more virtual events and webinars. There's only one problem, okay, maybe 2 problems. Hello and welcome to The Loyalty Loop. I'm Andrew Davis, and today we're not just uncovering the 2 major problems with webinars and virtual events, we're going to address both of them. I'll show you the biggest mistake we're making when it comes to creating our virtual events, and I'll introduce you to the mindset you need to embrace to pull off a successful virtual event. Last time, I introduced you to Lumiere's Law, and if you missed that episode, I highly suggest that you watch that episode right now, because this is the second in a 4-part series about rethinking virtual events. We're looking at how to make them more profitable, successful, and engaging. So, if you're interested in making your virtual events better, make sure you subscribe to the Loyalty Loop right now at bit.ly/loyaltyloopers. And I'll give you 15 ways to make your webinars, virtual events, better in 2021. So what's the first problem with webinars and virtual events? Well, they suck. That's not my opinion. Just do a quick search on Twitter or the IG and you'll see stuff like this. Yep, hashtag webinars suck. But the real question is why? Why do webinars and virtual events fail to hold our attention? Why are they so bad? Quick caveat here, I've participated in and attended over 60 webinars in the last 9 months. For those of you keeping score, that's an average of 1 every 3 days, and not all of those were bad. In fact, over the next few weeks and in my virtual event engagement ebook, I'll introduce you to a few events that kick. The few events that did maintain the audience's attention, not just for hours, but in some cases days, had one thing in common. And I'll tell you more about that one thing in just a second, but this one thing points to the real problem with virtual events. All right, now imagine you're at an in-person event. Let's stand at the back of the room and let's look at the setup here. There's a speaker on the stage delivering their session and a screen or 2 or more with their slides. The speaker is small right there, and the slides are big. The bigger the event, the smaller the speaker looks, and the bigger the slides get. Now, let's compare this with a virtual event and the technology platforms we're using to host these webinars. Now, look at that. The slides are big and the speaker is small. Or how about this webinar? The slides are massive and there's no speaker at all, just slides and audio. Ugh. Remember Lumiere's Law? Virtual events are not in-person events that we happen to broadcast online. An in-person event is a warm, sensory, multidimensional, captivating experience. A webinar? Well, a webinar is a cold, unidimensional, boxed experience with a million distractions just one click away. Oh, ice cream. Yeah, so churned. Love it. So, if we're going to create better, more engaging, more captivating virtual experiences and webinars, the very first thing we need to do is make the people, the presenters, the hosts, the MCs, the panelists, as big as possible. Yes, dump the slides altogether. We live in an age where platforms like YouTube and Twitch and Netflix and Hulu have set our expectations for streaming content, and none of those platforms, exactly 0 of them, have slides. Now, all of this boils down to one simple thing. In-person events are one too many experiences. There's one person on stage delivering a message to an audience of 100 or 1,000, but a virtual event or a webinar is a one-to-one experience. It's one person speaking to one person. It's intimate. Once you start making this leap, it affects everything. It affects the technology choices you make, the way you present, and the speakers you invite. It even affects how you program an entire day-long event. So, before I unveil the secret sauce behind all of the engaging events I attended in the last year, I want you to know that next week we are going to break down the secret sauce in greater detail on the Loyalty Loop. So if you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. It's bit.ly/loyaltyloopers, and I'll make sure you get a copy of my new virtual event engagement ebook as soon as it's ready. Okay, what's the secret sauce? Instead of thinking about a virtual event like an in-person event producer, you're going to need to shift your mindset. You're going to need to imagine you're the head of programming for a cable network. Yep, you're a cable network and you're in charge of programming. You're the one who's making the schedule and determining what shows air when. You're in charge of keeping people glued to the network. What exactly does this mean? That's what I'm going to reveal next week. I'll introduce you to some new programming terms like hammocking, stacking, and hot switching. It's gonna be fun. In the meantime, let's rethink our virtual events, and I'll see you next week in my Loyalty Loop. In the meantime, I'm gonna watch some TV, because now it's homework, right? I'm just gonna watch